Son of a Gun in 10 Minutes on BBC2 tells how American life was changed by the inventor of the first practical revolver, Sam Colt. Here on BBC1 in half an hour, David Coleman will be firing a question of sport at the regular team captains and their guests cricketer Chris Broad, speedway champion Hans Nielsen, footballer Mo Johnston and jockey Walter Swinburne. But first, live from the television centre here in London, Tomorrow's World.
Good evening and welcome. And here's a gadget that could send you up the wall. It's pretty compact for storage, but in just a few seconds, it becomes an instant 7-foot ladder. And since it's jointed at every rung, it can be converted into 9 different shapes, anything from a workbench to a small step ladder. Now, you might not want to spend all day up there, but it's pretty handy nonetheless. Howard.
Well, Peter's not the only one trying to get to the top tonight. Later on in the programme, Bob Symes takes off in search of some more new inventions. I have a report from Italy on the building of a remarkable new telescope, and we demonstrate how your video recorder could read this page in today's paper. But now, here's Maggie with another steamy tale from Iceland.
In the old days, Iceland was described as the gates to hell, and you can see why. These mud pools reek of the infernal, hissing and boiling off clouds of sulphurous gas and steam. There's surely no chance of life in this chemical melting pot.
But impossible though it may seem, in these boiling mud pools with temperatures of 100 degrees Celsius and beyond, scientists have found living organisms, and organisms which can only survive at these sort of temperatures. If they're out in the Sahara Desert, they'd eventually die of cold.
And if you keep them hot enough, you can grow them in the laboratory. This sort are quite comfortable at 75 Celsius. They're bacteria, but like any other form of life, they contain a mass of intricate chemical systems. The high temperatures at which these bacteria thrive would, to say the least, disrupt the complex biochemistry of most living organisms. They'd break down with disastrous results. I mean, for instance, you would not expect a hard-boiled egg to hatch out into a chicken. The heat has broken down the delicate proteins, which have then bonded together into a solid mass. So what is it that makes these bacteria so very special? The secret's in their chemical construction. Every single vulnerable biological molecule has become reinforced, toughened up by extra chemical bonds to stop disruption at high temperatures. It's an extraordinary piece of evolution. Well, that's all very interesting. But these heat-resistant bacteria are more than just a scientific curiosity. They're being set to work to solve a whole load of problems in industry.
Is the most advanced fish meal factory in Iceland, and they're the first to use the bacteria. It's been saving them an absolute fortune.
Because the bacteria and the chemicals they contain are so tough, they can survive some very nasty environments, particularly hot industrial processes. Now, the end of the fish meal production line produces a hot grey sludge, which has to be dried in oil-fired ovens, and they're very expensive to run, so as much water as possible must be removed before the solution ever gets to them.
And that happens here, in these vats. As the water evaporates, the fish meal solution becomes very sticky. Too sticky, in fact, to be pumped down to the ovens. And that's where the heat-resistant bacteria and their enzymes come in.
They survive the high temperatures and stop the solution thickening as it loses water. So the final, expensive drying in the ovens can be kept to an absolute minimum.
And this is just the beginning. Labs all over the world are looking at the heat-resistant bacteria. And Iceland is so rich in hot volcanic springs that the scientists here have managed to isolate many different types, any of which could be extremely useful.
So boiling away contentedly in the mud pools may be the living tools of tomorrow's chemical industry.
The ultimate in laziness, being able to set the video to record your favourite programmes without having to scramble around on your knees or even press any buttons. All you need is BBC1, 12th of March, and the time, 20:04, and a later time for finishing. And I think I'm going to have to do all that again because it's not worked properly. Let me just do that. BBC1, March the 12th, 20:06, and a later time to finish, say 23. Ah, it's worked this time. And now I'm telling my video to start recording Tomorrow's World in just a moment. Now, all I needed to do that was to use one of these scanners and a set of barcodes. The scanner uses infrared light, you can just see that red light there, and that bounces off the printed pattern of thick and thin lines. It reads that information and then sends it in the normal way to the video. But it would be even simpler if newspapers printed the barcodes along with the programmes, like today's Mirror has done specially for us. But you're not going to see these in papers and magazines just yet, despite the fact that the Japanese equivalent of the Radio Times already uses this system very successfully. But we're going to have to wait for the copyright laws over here to be clarified, because at the moment, when you record at home, you could be infringing someone's copyright. But it's perfectly legal for the manufacturers to make the machines and even to print these bar charts. So this is what we'll have when the system comes to Britain next month. But in the future, the whole business could in fact become much simpler. Each programme, each individual programme could be given its own number. Here we are with Tomorrow's World, 1194, or you could just have a barcode. Then what you do is you scan that or you punch it into your video. Then a system like CFAX would send a signal saying that Tomorrow's World is about to begin, and correctly set videos would record. So even if EastEnders overran, the video would wait for the right signal before starting to record. Now, all that technology already exists, but again, we're waiting for those copyright lawyers to sort things out. Now, let's have a look. There it is. There's me earlier looking at the Japanese Radio Times, proving that the system has worked. I think I need a haircut. And now for the latest roundup of new inventions with Bob Symes.
Well, that's loud enough to attract anyone's attention. Yet that theft alarm relies on nothing more than this. It's a siren attached to the exhaust pipe. It works when the engine's running because the exhaust gases are forced through angled holes in two discs, one here and another one inside. That spins this disc at high speed and creates a loud noise. Now the siren section has a lock. So you can take it off, but a thief can't. I think it's a nice piece of lateral thinking. No complicated wires, no sensitive electronics which can go off accidentally. Mind you, it does not guarantee the thief won't get into your vehicle, but it certainly makes sure that he won't drive away with it. Now I have another invention for motorists, but for that I'll need some slippery ground. That looks a likely space.
In an ordinary vehicle, I'm actually risking the worst, getting stuck. That's because of an essential mechanism called a differential gear, built into every vehicle. It's vital for turning corners, since it allows the outer wheel to revolve faster than the inner one. But here, that'll get you into trouble, because when one set of wheels spins in the mud, the other set can't turn at all. Well, I'm going to try something that's designed to overcome that problem. An extra set of wheels. The whole assembly is bolted through existing holes in the rear brake plate. At either side, this frame supports a wheel, and the two are linked by an axle. So when I turn this wheel, it turns the wheel at the other side. Now those wheels can be forced onto the tires simply by turning this cam. If I do the same again on the other side, the truck's rear wheels are locked together. Now let's see if I can transfer some of the turning force from the spinning wheels to the static ones. I think it's a useful idea, although I'd like to see a lot more testing to make sure it's robust enough for really long and heavy duty. While it won't ever beat four-wheel drive, it can certainly improve on no drive at all.